The overwhelming belief was the Fed would keep rates unchanged, which it did. And in its announcement, Fed Chair Powell indicating the economy is showing some signs of strength. Your thoughts on that?
I was a little bit surprised to hear him use some of that wording, solid pace, firm footing, but that's good to hear. Isn't that what we all want to see, the economy starting to recover, the labor market stabilizing slightly, inflation showing some indications that it is trending in the right direction? That's welcome news, but we've still got a lot of data left to digest. And I think at this point, it looks like Q2 may be the earliest we may see a rate cut, if at all, and we'll have to wait and watch exactly how the newest data comes out.
Yeah, and we're also going to have to wait to see how Trump's tariffs are going to impact the economy moving forward as well, not only here in the U.S., but globally as well. Let's talk more about Fed concern, however, over U.S. employment, because at this point it seems to be trumping concerns over inflation even.
I think potentially. I mean, what I did get from the press conference is that they seem to be more satisfied with the position that the labor market's in. The fact that unemployment did fall slightly from November to December was certainly welcome news, something the Fed had been wanting. The fact that we have such slow labor market growth, is making it a little bit easier to maintain the current unemployment level, even though job gains are so slow. Hiring is probably the biggest frustration right now, and because it is very low, although layoffs are slow and quitting is slow, the hiring has just not picked up, and that's a huge frustration for the Fed and for people looking for a job.
Yeah, what we heard just before the holidays, slow to hire, slow to fire, so just more of that. But we really can't talk about Jerome Powell without talking about the pressure that comes from Donald Trump. Perhaps indictment, repeated blistering verbal attacks from the White House. And Powell, for his part, is staying above the fray and basically refusing to be drawn into this matter, no matter how many times reporters question him on Wednesday. What do you make of this cloud that has been hanging over the Fed?
Well, it's a difficult position to be in. I think given the fact that we expected there to be no cut today, what would have otherwise been a pretty sleepy Fed meeting, was made a little bit more interesting by the fact that, of course, there was going to be questions about the investigation, the Supreme Court case, the unusual nature with which nominations are potentially being done for the chair. So I think Jerome Powell did what we all knew he would do, which is try to sidestep these questions as best as possible. But there's only so much you can do. He's going to be stepping down and having to make a decision about whether he stays on as a governor. Someone else is going to step into that seat. And it's very likely that they will have a more dovish outlook than he himself does. But I think what's important to remember is that the chair, as important as they are, they only have one vote.
Right.
And we've seen from the last 3 meetings that the members are not shy anymore about dissent. And certainly that's something that we can expect in the future if the data doesn't support that dovish outlook.
Yeah, and the real challenge, though, is going to be in May. Once Powell's term does expire as Fed chair, he could stay on as a governor. But how important is it? I mean, the obvious, to keep Fed's independence. Trump wants dramatic cuts. And even if most economists say that's not the right move right now, he appears hell-bent on pushing forward in that and finding someone to put in that chair who will do his bidding.
And at this point, it would be easier to speculate if we knew who that person was going to be. I think we all thought it may have been Kevin Hassett. That seems to be off the table at the moment, and now we're back to a bit of a horse race. But as Jerome Powell said himself today, he and his colleagues are committed to maintaining confidence in Fed independence. I would certainly hope that whoever sits in that seat will feel the weighty responsibility that they hold as being the chair of the Federal Reserve and take that seriously. So going into this, as one of many people deciding how monetary policy is going to be decided after Chair Jerome Powell steps down, I hope there's a level of seriousness that nominee takes with this and continues to maintain confidence that we all have in the Federal Reserve today.
Yeah, so basically we have about 3 more months before Powell steps down and there's a new Fed chair. What do you think we can expect over the next 100 days or so? How important is this period going to be for tariffs, for inflation, for jobs, and for the Fed itself, its independence?
I think it's going to be very important because we're not going to have a meeting in February. We will have one in March. But I think given what was said in this meeting today, I don't expect that we're going to get a rate cut in March. I think Q2 is most likely where that would come in. Again, we've got some data to digest, and we'll see what that turns out to be. If we get a reacceleration in inflation, then I think that's going to push back any potential rate cuts. If the labor market maintains its stability today or even improves, then I think certainly that will undercut potential rate cuts again. But as far as the Fed independence goes, what we've got today is some questions from these investigations about exactly what's going to be coming down the line, what the intentions are of the administration. I think there's been enough pushback from Congress, from outside observers, that this behavior is not warranted. This behavior is not appropriate, and hopefully those notes are being taken and taken seriously.